This webinar highlights some of the main changes that have been made to BD56 and BD61 when they were updated and republished as CS456 and CS457. This is part of a general update of the whole DMRB. It was updated because it contained aging documents of varying qualities that didn't really reflect the needs of the users. The updated DMRB will be consistent in style and format and much more intuitive to use. Requirements are clearly defined in a reduced number of documents. Advice is much more concise and directly linked to the requirements to encourage industry best practice and encourage innovation. This is part of Highways England's overall management strategy. This includes all the work that's undertaken to support the business through concept, design, construction, maintenance, and end of life for all our assets, including structures. Associated with the strategy is a plan to transform and continuously improve. It will support better planning and secure longer term investment in our aging assets. The key themes in this strategy are customer service, which is supporting the users of our network, strategic planning and service delivery, ensuring optimal interventions, maintaining the safety and fitness for service, better use of asset knowledge to understand risks and support planning, adopting a whole life approach, and support for people with tools and training. Having robust and consistent standards and providing guidance is a key component of the asset management approach and underpinned the need for a complete review of the DMRB. The new DMRB has been set out in a specific, easy to understand format. Our new documents clearly state requirements using shall or must. New clause numbering is based around the requirements, with the top level being the requirement and the second level being advice. Supporting advice uses should or may verb forms, and notes sometimes use can. This particular webinar concentrates on just two documents. These are part of an overall suite of documents involved in the assessment of highway bridges and structures. Designers would call up the particular documents that are relevant to the particular structure that they are interested in. This webinar concentrates solely on the documents for steel or composite. The updates to BD56 and 61 didn't require major technical changes. The methods and requirements are largely unchanged or slightly tweaked to allow more general approaches to be adopted. Both documents include greater references to Eurocodes, and this will facilitate an easier transition to Eurocode assessment standards when they are published in some time in the future. CS456, the standard for steel bridges, contains a number of clauses and requirements taken from a number of previous standards, BD56, BD13, B819, with specific extracts from BD9 and BA9 pertinent to fatigue assessments. The format of BD56 originally supplemented or amended clauses within BS 5400 Part 3. So it's been necessary to retain this link and mirror the styles on that. And therefore the new CS456 has two main sections, a main body, which forms follows the format of the DMRB, and the Appendix A, which is largely unchanged from the previous version to integrate with BS 5400 Part 3. Some key technical changes on this. We have added some criteria to look at robustness, and part of the particular assessment standards. With notch toughness, we have strengthened the advice with regard to welds. They weren't previously covered by the standard and could have been overlooked on that. Bearing stiffeners, BS56 was much more onerous than 5400 Part 3. Full bearing loads was used instead of the middle third, which is used in 5400 Part 3. This clause now follows the 5400 Part 3 requirements, except where the bearing stiffener needs to retain the stiffness over its full length. For example, as part of a U-frame restraining the compression flange. And with regard to criteria for inspection, we've consolidated the information in Annex I. We have also added and consolidated information on managing existing welds. The focus primarily is on the requirements, and those haven't changed at all. We're looking at a basic requirement to visually check the weld, concentrating on welds in critical tensile areas, which have to be visually inspected and confirm the minimum web size, and looking at adding we have added criteria for the critical tensile areas to be re-inspected and subject to NDT. Some of the methods in BD56 for crossbeams have been edited to improve usability, and a big add to this is some additional clauses to allow for finite element analysis. We've also tweaked and simplified some of the language to allow it to be easier applied and removing the conflicting methods for shear lag. The critical buckling stresses, we've actually much simplified the method of assessing interaction between stresses for stiffened panels, such that as a diagram shows, these historic interaction curves required numerous iterations and repeated manual readings, which could induce errors into it. These have been replaced. On the composite standard CS456, which replaces BD61, the core content is largely unchanged. We have updated some references, but that's except those that are particularly relevant to 5400, where there may be some compatibility issues. Properties in previous BD61 were located at a number of different locations throughout the standards. For example, the coefficient of thermal expansion was cited in clause 4.4.2.2, and the elastic modulus was put in 5.2.1. What we've done is pull them all together, generally put them in section 3 of the document or within the CS454, the general standard for assessment. We have rationalised part of the content within there because much of the previous content of 61 was explanations and recommendations of different modelling techniques to adopt. Now, although these remain valid, they don't really take account of modern analysis software. Therefore, we have cut down the specifics to look at the general principles, allowing designers to identify and use any particular relevant software that they think are appropriate. Shear connectors. These have been included in clause 5.63, but a lot of the background commentary and derivation have been removed. It was previously included in BD61 for information only and only used where required by assessors. So there's actually no change to it, but it looks greatly different because there's obviously less information on that. Fatigue requirements. The requirements of shear studs are essentially unchanged. What we have done is clarify circumstances where there's a need to undertake fatigue assessment, and that really is where there's been a change of use, where the detail results in unusual, undesirable stress concentrations, or where fatigue damage has been detected. With regard to serviceability, most of these have been removed. In general, SLS is not particularly linked to failure mechanisms on this, and its strengthening is rarely, if ever, carried out on a structure identified to have SLS deficiencies. So the text has been clarified to reflect this. It removes any doubt that SLS failures really warrant strengthening works. Some changes to the permanent formwork requirements. We have highlighted where fatigue could have a potential impact on the assessment life on this when assessing particular bespoke designs that have permanent formwork. The old BD61 appendices have been sort of altered as well. Annex A was removed, mainly because it's a serviceability requirement. The information retained in Appendix B and C provides information on simplified approaches that can be used to determine the critical buckling length. However, the main document was adjusted to highlight that elastic critical buckling analysis or a non-linear material and geometric analysis may give more favourable assessment results. So it's pointing designers to other methods. Annex D and vibration was removed and replaced with recommendation for in situ monitoring. Appendix E was removed and replaced with text within the main body of text in the document. Annex G was removed. It's useful information, but not really relevant for an assessment document. Annex H is now Annex C, and Annex I contained a set of flowcharts illustrating assessment procedures. Now, they were useful, but it's not really relevant for an assessment document, so it was removed. Overall, the methods and requirements are largely unchanged or changed to allow more general approaches to be adopted and give the designer more freedom on that. The less relevant information has been removed, making the documents easy to use. The new format allows more freedom to designers to select the appropriate methods, and that should allow them more opportunities to take better account of better software and any changes that have occurred over the past few years, which will also facilitate the transition to Eurocode assessment standards when they do come in. That wraps up the main points, main changes with regard to the changes to these particular documents. It's part of an overall update to the DMRB. We have communicated a number of changes on this. There's been a number of bulletins that have been put out. You can find out more information on the Highways England Innovation Hub pages. There'll be a number of webinar tutorials like this one given by the technical leads of each discipline, and that there will be a number of presentations and a number of items in the technical press. With regard to frequently asked questions, you can find any of these standards on the Standards for Highways website, links on the page. Any old document you will be able to get most of them on the archive section of the Standards for Highways website. Prior to 2001, you can still get them, but you'd have to check from the Standards Inquiries website. With regard to using these documents immediately, that would be a specific query with regard to the existing contract terms on your specific contract. From Highways England, we've published these on our standards GG 101. It says that they should be used as soon as they're published, which is now. There are a number of exceptions that can be proposed where implementation would result in a significant cost delay. As with any other documents, we encourage you to give us any feedback on this, and you can email that feedback back to us on the standard inquiries at highwaysengland.co.uk. Thank you for your time.